There is a child standing at the edge of a tide pool. The water is clear. Small fish dart between stones. A purple starfish clings to the rock face just below the surface. The child reaches in, fingers slow, careful not to disturb the silt. She touches the starfish gently, feels its texture, the coolness of the water. Then she lifts her hand and watches the creature remain exactly where it was, undisturbed, still part of the pool. She does not try to take it home. This is joy without grasping. We spend much of our lives reaching into experiences the way a different child might. The one who wants to pull the starfish out, to carry it in a bucket, to keep it. We think that holding on is how we honor what delights us. That if we do not possess the moment, we have somehow failed to love it. But the tide pool teaches something else. You can touch wonder without removing it from its place. Sit for a moment and notice your breathing, not changing it, just noticing the air moving in, the air moving out, the small pause between. You are not trying to hold any single breath. Each one arrives, does its work, and goes. And still, breath continues. This is the body's natural wisdom. Celebration in the Buddhist sense is not about intensity. It is not about amplifying an experience until it fills every corner of your awareness. It is more like standing in the presence of something beautiful and allowing it to remain itself. The sunset does not need you to capture it. The laughter of a friend does not require your analysis. The warmth of tea in your hands does not ask to be explained. And yet we reach for our phones. We try to frame the moment. We narrate it to ourselves even as it unfolds. We think, I must remember this. I must make this last. Underneath that thought is a kind of fear. The fear that if we do not grasp, the moment will slip away and leave nothing behind. That joy is so fragile it cannot survive our open hand. But think of the tide pool again. The child's hand open in the water. She is not detached. She is not indifferent. She is fully present. Her attention is soft and complete. She sees the starfish more clearly because she is not trying to own it. Her joy is not less because she leaves it where it belongs. In fact, her joy may be more spacious, more true. When we cling to an experience, we narrow our focus. We begin to guard it. We become tense. The body tightens. The breath shortens. We stop experiencing the thing itself and begin experiencing our fear of losing it. This is the nature of attachment. It does not preserve joy. It replaces joy with anxiety. Notice now if there is any tightness in your shoulders, in your jaw. Let your attention rest there without judgment, just noticing. If you find tension, see if you can soften it, not forcing, just allowing. The way you might let a fist uncurl after holding something too long. The Buddha spoke often of letting go. But letting go is not the same as pushing away. It is not rejection. It is not coldness. Letting go is what the child does when she lifts her hand from the water. She has touched. She has seen. She has delighted. And now she allows the starfish to continue being a starfish in its own place, in its own way. We can celebrate a birthday without clinging to youth. We can enjoy a meal without demanding it taste this way forever. We can love someone without needing to control the shape of that love. We can feel proud of an accomplishment without building our identity around it. Each of these is a form of touching the tide pool. What makes this possible is a shift in how we meet experience. Instead of asking, how can I keep this? We ask, what is here right now? The first question pulls us out of the present and into a future where the good thing is gone. The second question returns us to the only place joy actually lives. Right now, in this breath, in this sound, in this light on the wall. When we practice this kind of attention, we begin to notice something surprising. Joy does not depend on permanence. In fact, joy is often most vivid when we stop demanding that it stay. The cherry blossom is precious because it falls. The conversation is sweet because it will end. The warmth of the sun on your skin is tender because evening is coming. Impermanence is not the enemy of celebration. It is the condition that makes celebration possible. And so we return to the tide pool one more time. The child stands. The water settles. The starfish remains. She will leave soon. The tide will come in. The pool will change. But right now, in this moment, there is nothing missing. Nothing to fix. Nothing to hold. Only the willingness to be present. To touch lightly. To see clearly. This is where the practice begins. There is a particular kind of suffering that arrives wearing the face of joy. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed. In the moment right after something good has happened, you taste something delicious, and immediately your mind whispers, "How do I keep this?" You laugh with someone you love, and a small voice asks, "Will this last?" You feel a moment of peace, and almost at once you begin to grip it, to hold it still, to make it permanent. This is not the joy itself. The joy is light, immediate, without demand. But what follows? That tightening, that reaching. This is where the heaviness enters. There is a child holding a butterfly in their closed palm. The butterfly is alive, its wings folded and trembling against the skin. The child wants so badly to keep it, to own the beauty and the aliveness they feel. So the palm closes tighter. The child can feel the flutter of those wings, the delicate thrashing. And in the grip to keep it, in the fear of it escaping, something in the butterfly begins to die. The child feels the flutter slow, and still the hand does not open. This is what we do with our moments of happiness. We feel something good arrive, a taste, a laugh, a sense of ease, and immediately the mind moves to secure it. Hold it, make it stay, protect it from the inevitable moment when it will pass. And in that very movement of protection, we change the quality of what we are protecting. The joy becomes heavy with the weight of our need to keep it. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. This is not a sad truth, though we often hear it that way. It is an observation about how things actually are. Everything that arises passes away. Everything that comes together eventually comes apart. This includes your breath, your thoughts, your sensations, and yes, your moments of joy. They are not exceptions to this law. They are not meant to be permanent. And yet we live as if they should be, as if happiness that doesn't last is somehow a failure, a loss we must prevent. But what happens when we truly see this impermanence? Not as an idea, but as a direct perception. The Buddha said, when one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This turning away is not a rejection of joy. It is a release of the grip. It is the opening of the palm. When you stop trying to hold the butterfly, you can actually see it. You can watch the precise pattern of its wings, the way the light moves across them. You can feel its aliveness more fully because you are not fighting against its nature. The moment you open your hand, the butterfly does not immediately fly away. It stays for a breath, sometimes longer. But now you are not suffering in that staying, because you are not demanding that it remain. This is what it means to celebrate without clinging. It is not the absence of joy. It is the presence of joy without the added layer of fear and grasping that we usually wrap around it. Consider a moment when you felt genuine pleasure. Perhaps you tasted something you loved, or someone made you laugh, or you felt the sun on your skin after a long cold time. Notice what happened in the seconds right after. Did your mind immediately move to secure it? Did you think, I want more of this? or I hope this happens again, or I must not lose this feeling. This is the natural reflex. There is nothing wrong with it. But it is worth noticing, because in that noticing, something shifts. The grip loosens, not through force, but through seeing. When you watch your mind reach for the butterfly, when you observe the tightening of the palm, you are no longer completely identified with that movement. You are aware of it happening. And in awareness, there is a subtle freedom. The hand can remain open. This does not mean you stop enjoying things. It means you enjoy them differently. You feel the pleasure without the anxious undercurrent of trying to keep it. You let it be what it is, a moment, a sensation, something that has arisen and will pass. And in that acceptance, paradoxically, you suffer less. There is a practice that can help this become more than an idea. The next time you notice a moment of pleasure, and these moments are constant if we pay attention to them, pause for just a few breaths. Feel the pleasure fully, and then gently notice what your mind does immediately after. Does it reach? Does it plan how to repeat it? Does it fear losing it? Simply observe. You do not need to change anything. Just watch the butterfly in your palm. Watch what your mind does with it. Watch whether the grip tightens or whether it can remain open. This observation itself is the practice, and it is in this quiet watching that the difference becomes real. Not in your thinking, but in your direct sensing. You begin to feel the distinction between the joy itself, which is light, which is free, and the clinging that follows, which is heavy and constrained. And once you feel that difference, the palm begins to open on its own. There is a moment that comes to many of us. We experience something genuinely good, a meal that tastes exactly right, a conversation that lands with warmth, an afternoon where the light falls just so, and we feel held by it. And in that moment, something happens that we rarely notice. We reach for it. Not physically, but in the mind. We grasp. We think, I have this. This is mine. I need to keep this. And in that grasping, something shifts. The joy becomes smaller. It becomes something we own, and therefore something we fear losing. This is the confusion we live with. We have learned that joy is real only if it belongs to us. That appreciation is shallow unless we can claim it, hold it, possess it. We confess this to each other without knowing it. We say things like, I want to capture this moment, as if a moment could be trapped in amber, as if it could be anything other than what it is, a passing thing, alive, because it passes. The flower does not think of the bee. It blooms because blooming is its nature. The flower does not say, I will bloom so that the bee will come, so that I can own the bee's visit, so that I can keep this forever. The flower blooms, the bee comes, the exchange happens, and then it is gone. The flower does not suffer from this. It does not cling to the moment of pollination. It does not try to become permanent. And yet the flower's blooming is complete. It is full. It is not waiting for something else to make it real. We are not flowers. We have minds that can imagine, remember, anticipate. This is not a problem. But it becomes a problem when we believe that our joy must be owned to be valid. When we believe that unless we can say, this is mine, the joy does not count. Consider a sunset that no one can own. You watch it, the colors shift. The light moves across the sky in a way that will never happen again, in exactly that way, in exactly that light. You could try to possess it. You could photograph it, paint it, write about it, tell someone else about it, so they will know that you experienced it. You could try to make it yours by owning the memory, by returning to it in your mind, by saying, that was one of the best sunsets I have ever seen, and I was there. But the sunset does not care. It is still a sunset. It is still beautiful. And it is still not yours. It was never yours. It was only ever here, and then it was gone. And somehow, if you let it be that way, the joy of it does not diminish. It may even deepen. This is what we are learning to see. That joy can be full without being claimed. That appreciation can be complete without possession. That we can celebrate without clinging. The way we know this is not through argument. It is through a small shift in how we speak to ourselves when something pleasant arrives. Not a grand practice. Not something that requires effort or willpower. Just a small reorientation of the mind. When something good happens, and it could be anything, a moment of ease, a kind word, a taste you enjoy, the warmth of sun on your skin, there is a natural impulse to say, "I have this," to claim it, to make it yours. This impulse is so quick, so automatic that we rarely see it, but it is there. What we can do, gently and without force, is notice that impulse and offer the mind a different way of speaking. Instead of, "I have this," we can say, "This is here now," not as a correction, not as a way of pushing away the joy, but as a way of letting it be what it actually is, a present thing, alive, because it is temporary, complete, because it does not need to be owned. This is not a denial of the joy. It is the opposite. It is a way of meeting the joy fully, without the weight of possession. When you taste something delicious and the mind says, "I have this," you are already one step removed from the taste. You are tasting and also thinking about owning. When you say instead, "This is here now," you are closer to the taste itself. You are with the experience as it is, not with your story about the experience. The flower does not say, "I am blooming." It blooms. There is no separation between the blooming and the being. In the same way, there is no separation between the joy and the experiencing of it. The moment you add the thought, "I have this," you create a separation. You make the joy into an object that you possess rather than an experience that you are. When something pleasant happens, say internally, "This is here now." Say it as a whisper in the mind. Say it with the same gentleness you would use if you were speaking to someone who was afraid. This is not a command. It is an invitation. An invitation to be with what is actually happening, without the added weight of ownership. And notice what happens, not in a way that tries to achieve something. Just notice. Does the joy feel different? Does it feel lighter somehow? More vivid? Does it last longer when you do not try to keep it? These are not questions with answers. They are invitations to look directly at your own experience. The listener understands, in this moment, that joy can be full without being claimed. That celebration is not diminished by letting go, that the best sunsets are the ones we do not try to own. There is a particular kind of restlessness that arrives the moment something good happens. Not the joy itself. The joy is simple, clean, but what comes after? A small urgency, a reaching forward. The moment you taste something delicious, already your mind is asking when you can taste it again. The moment you hear music that moves you, you are already thinking about replaying it. The moment someone says something kind, you are already wondering if they will say it again. This is not a flaw in you. It is the mind's natural motion, but it is worth noticing, because in that very noticing, something shifts. When joy arrives and we do not cling to it, it is complete. It needs nothing. A smile from someone you love is whole in itself. A moment of laughter is not waiting for a second moment to make it real. Yet we live as though each good feeling is incomplete until we have secured the next one. We rush from one experience to the next, and the space between them. The silence, the rest, becomes something we pass through rather than something we inhabit. Think of a piece of music. The notes themselves are what we hear, yes. But the silence between the notes is what gives them shape. Without that space, without that breath, the music would collapse into noise. The silence is not empty. It is full of possibility. It is what allows each note to be heard clearly, to resonate, to matter. When you listen to music you love, you are not only listening to the notes, you are listening to the silence that holds them. Our joy works the same way. There is an old teaching from the earliest Buddhist texts, and it is stated with remarkable simplicity. In seeing, there is only the seen. In hearing, only the heard. In sensing, only the sensed. This is not a command to do something special. It is a description of what is already happening when we are not adding layers of wanting and fearing on top of experience. When you see something beautiful, in that moment of pure seeing, there is only the beauty. Your eye meets the color, the light, the form. There is no separation. There is no you standing apart from it, judging it, trying to keep it. There is only the seeing happening, but almost immediately, before we even realize it, we add a thought. We say, I like this. I want more of this. I want to remember this. I want others to see what I am seeing. And in that moment, the simple seeing becomes complicated. The joy becomes something we are trying to own, to hold, to repeat. The teaching is not asking you to stop having thoughts. Thoughts will come. It is simply pointing to what happens when you rest in the direct experience itself, without the layer of grasping that usually follows. This is where mindfulness becomes not a technique, but a way of being present. When you are truly mindful, you are not trying to change anything. You are simply aware of what is. And in that awareness, there is a kind of freedom. The joy does not need to be protected. It does not need to lead somewhere. It is already complete. Most of us have never really tested this. We have never sat with a moment of joy and simply let it be, without immediately reaching for the next thing. We have been trained to move quickly, to maximize, to secure what feels good, and avoid what feels bad. The space between experiences feels like a waste. It feels like nothing is happening. But something is happening in that space. Something essential. When you taste food you love, what happens if you pause after that first bite? Not for long. Just enough to actually taste what you have tasted. To let the flavor settle on your tongue. To notice the texture, the warmth, the sensation. If you do this, you might find that the experience becomes richer, not poorer. The food tastes more like itself, because you are actually present for it. When you receive a compliment, what happens if you pause before your mind moves on to the next thing? If you simply let the words land, if you feel the warmth of being seen and appreciated without immediately deflecting or minimizing or wondering when it will happen again, that pause is not empty. It is full of a kind of rest that we rarely allow ourselves. The practice that emerges from this understanding is very gentle. After a moment of joy, and you will know it when it arrives, because joy is unmistakable, take 3 conscious breaths. Not as a rule, not as something you are doing to yourself, simply as a way of staying present in the space that the joy has opened. Breathe in, let the breath be. Breathe out, let the breath be. Breathe in again, let the breath be. In those 3 breaths, you are not trying to extend the joy or make it last. You are simply not abandoning it. You are not rushing past it into the next moment. You are resting in the silence between the notes, letting it shape the music that came before and the music that will come after. This is not about trying to be happier or more present or more spiritual. It is simply about what happens when you do not run from the space between moments. When you let it be there. When you trust that it is enough. There is a particular kind of tiredness that comes not from doing too much, but from trying too hard to feel the right thing. You know it perhaps. A celebration arrives, a birthday, an anniversary, a small victory, and somewhere in the middle of it, you notice yourself working, not at the party or the meal or the moment itself, but at the feeling, measuring it, checking whether you are happy enough, whether this is turning out the way you imagined, whether you should be capturing it, remembering it, making sure it counts. This is what happens when we turn joy into a project. The mind has a peculiar habit. When something feels good, it immediately begins to worry about losing it. And in that worry, it reaches. It tries to hold the moment tighter. It photographs every angle, plans how to recreate it, compares this happiness to the last one, or to an imagined future one. The grasping begins so quietly that you might not notice it at first. But the exhaustion is real. The joy, which should be light and spacious, becomes something you are managing, something you are trying to get right. There is an old teaching from the Mahayana tradition that speaks directly to this. The mind that grasps at happiness creates the very suffering it seeks to avoid. Not because happiness is wrong, not because celebration is a trap, but because the act of clinging, of trying to nail happiness down, to make it permanent, to extract every last drop of meaning from it, that act itself is the problem. The grasping is the suffering. Think of someone on vacation, moving through each moment with a camera in hand. Not just taking a photo now and then, but constantly framing the next shot, checking the light, positioning people, waiting for the perfect expression. The vacation is happening all around them, but they are not quite in it. They are one step removed, orchestrating the memory instead of living it. And afterward, they have many photographs, but a thin sense of having actually been there. The moment was consumed by the effort to capture it. This is not so different from what we do with joy. We are trying to photograph our own happiness. We are trying to make it permanent, provable, repeatable. We want to know that we did it right, that we felt enough, but it will last. But here is what becomes visible when you watch this pattern closely. The happiness you are chasing is already here. It is in the warmth of the room, the taste of the food, the sound of laughter, the simple fact of being alive in this particular moment with these particular people. None of that requires you to do anything. None of it needs to be managed. It is only when the mind steps in and says, I must hold this, or I must remember this, or I must make sure this is real, that the light touch becomes a grip. Craving is the word the early teachings use, and craving is not a moral failure. It is not something to shame yourself about. It is simply what the mind does when it has not yet learned to rest. The mind sees something good and immediately wants to secure it, to make it permanent, to own it. This impulse is so natural that most people never question it. They just accept that this is how joy works. You find happiness, and then you have to work to keep it. But what if you did not have to? What if, instead, you could let joy move through you the way a breeze moves through a room, present, vivid, and then gone, without any part of you having to hold it, or manage it, or make it mean something? This becomes possible when you notice the moment the grasping begins. Not in a harsh way, not with self-judgment, just noticing. You might be at a gathering, and you feel a genuine warmth. And then, almost immediately, you feel yourself reaching, planning the next happy moment, wondering if you should be enjoying this more. thinking about how you will tell someone about it later. The moment you notice that reaching, you have already created some distance from the pure experience itself. The practice, then, is simple in structure, but requires a kind of gentle honesty. While you are still in the middle of something good, pause and notice, am I here, or am I already somewhere else? Am I tasting this food, or am I thinking about how good it is? Am I with this person, or am I rehearsing the story I will tell? Am I celebrating, or am I managing my celebration? You do not have to change anything when you notice. You do not have to force yourself to be present or feel guilty about the reaching. Just notice. Just see it. Because the moment you see the pattern clearly, the moment you feel the subtle exhaustion of trying to hold onto something that is already slipping away, something shifts. The mind begins to relax. It begins to understand, not as an idea, but as a direct experience, that trying to grip happiness is what makes it disappear. And in that relaxation, the joy that was always there becomes visible again. Not brighter, not bigger, just clearer, just real. There is a moment that arrives sometimes without warning. You taste something delicious. You hear music that moves you. Someone you love laughs nearby. A color in the sky catches your eye. The body feels light. The mind feels clear. And almost in the same breath, something else arrives too. A small voice that says, I want more of this. Or this should last longer. Or why can't it always feel this way? This second movement is so quick, so natural, that most of the time we do not see it happening. We think the joy itself is what brings the restlessness. But if you slow down enough to look, you will notice something different. The joy and the wanting are two separate things. The joy arrives. Then, almost immediately, we add a condition to it. We say this is good, but only if it continues. This is good, but only if it feels stronger. This is good, but only if it means something about my life. The Buddha spoke about this with a kind of quiet directness. He said that suffering comes not from pleasant experiences themselves, but from our relationship to them. We meet something good, and we grip it. We demand that it be different than it is. We believe that joy is incomplete unless it meets our requirements. Imagine holding a single ripe strawberry. You have not eaten it yet. You are simply looking at it. The color is there. The shape is there. The smell reaches you. There is already something complete in this moment. The strawberry is what it is. But then the mind begins its work. It says, when I eat this, I will feel satisfied. It says, I wish I had more of these. It says, this taste will make me happy for the rest of the day. It says, I should have had this yesterday too. And suddenly, the simple fact of a strawberry has become the beginning of a story about lack, about wanting, about time. The strawberry itself has not changed, but your experience of it has become complicated. This is what happens with all joy. Not because joy is false or wrong, but because we do not know how to meet it without immediately trying to change it into something else. There is a teaching that says this is enough. This moment as it is complete. Not because it will last forever. Not because it is perfect. Not because it means anything grand about who you are, but because right now, in this exact form, it is whole. A strawberry is a strawberry. A laugh is a laugh. A clear mind is a clear mind. Each one arrives, and each one is exactly what it is. When you eat that strawberry slowly, you might notice something. If you can stay with the taste without immediately wishing for more, without already planning the next bite, something shifts. The flavor becomes more vivid, not less. The pleasure becomes more real, not less. Not because you are trying harder to enjoy it, but because you have stopped arguing with what is actually happening. you have stopped adding your conditions to it. This is not about forcing yourself to be grateful or to appreciate more. That is still a form of grasping. That is still saying my joy should look a certain way. That is still adding conditions. What opens instead is simpler. It is just, this is here, I am tasting this. This is what it tastes like right now. Not yesterday's strawberry, not tomorrow's strawberry, this one. And there is a kind of completeness in that attention that does not come from trying to make the moment better. The practice, then, is not complicated. It is just to notice. The next time something pleasant happens, something small or something large, you can pause. Not to stop yourself from enjoying it, but just to watch what happens in your mind. Does the joy arrive by itself, and then does something else come after? Does the pleasure feel whole for even a moment before you add a requirement to it? You might notice it with something as simple as a warm cup of tea. The warmth is there, the taste is there, and then, I wish I had time to enjoy this more. Or, this tastes good, but it is not as good as the kind I had last month. Or, I should do this every morning. Watch how quickly the mind moves. Watch how it takes something that is already here and says, but it should be different. There is no judgment in noticing this. The mind does this naturally. It is not a flaw. It is just how the untrained mind works. It cannot help but reach toward what feels good and try to make it permanent. Try to make it mean something. Try to make it bigger. But you can see it happening. And in that seeing, something begins to change. Not because you have done anything, but because you have stopped adding your demands to what is already complete. The strawberry is still a strawberry. The joy is still joy. But you are no longer arguing with it. You are no longer trying to make it into something it is not. And that, it turns out, is where the real satisfaction lies. Not in the strawberry, not in the moment itself, but in the simple, quiet ability to meet what is here without asking it to be anything else. There is something we do when joy arrives. We reach for it. We close our hand around it. And in that closing, something shifts. The warmth that was flowing through us begins to feel like something we might lose. The lightness becomes a weight we must carry. This is not the joy itself that troubles us. It is what we do with the joy. When you have felt something beautiful, a moment with someone you love, a sudden ease in your body, the quiet pleasure of being alone in a room with good light, you may notice a small fear that follows. Not during the joy, after. The fear whispers, this will end. And so we begin to hold it. We replay it. We try to keep it close, as if our remembering could preserve it, as if our grip could stop time. But there is something worth noticing here. The hand that closes around something cannot receive anything new. It is full. It is occupied. And what we are really afraid of is not the loss of joy itself. We are afraid that if we let this joy go, we will not know how to feel joy again. We will have lost our capacity for it. So we cling, we hold, we make the joy into a possession. This is where a different possibility begins to emerge, not through force or willpower, but through understanding how joy actually moves through us. Water flows. This is what water does. It does not cling to the stone it moves across. It does not grip the riverbed. It flows through, around, and over. And in this flowing, this constant release, it shapes the world. It nourishes. It moves life forward. The water that flows through open fingers is the same water that will flow through open fingers again. It is not lost. It is moving. When we try to hold joy, we are trying to be other than what we are. We are trying to be stone instead of water. We become rigid, we become afraid. And the joy, which is by nature flowing and changing, begins to feel trapped in our grip. There is a teaching from the Zen tradition that speaks to this. The hand that opens can receive again. The hand that closes holds only what is already gone. This is not poetic language meant to inspire. It is a direct observation of what happens. When you close your hand around a moment of joy, you are holding only the memory of it. The actual joy, the living, breathing experience, has already moved on. It has already become the past. What remains in your closed fist is an image, a story, a shadow of the thing itself. And you are calling this shadow your joy. You are calling this grip your love. But the capacity for joy does not live in the past. It lives in your openness right now. It lives in your availability to what is actually happening. When your hand is closed, you cannot feel the warmth of the sun on your palm. You cannot feel the texture of another person's hand. You cannot feel anything new because you are occupied with holding something old. This is the paradox that slowly reveals itself when we pay attention. The way to keep joy alive is to let it go. The way to have access to joy again is to release it completely. Not someday. Now, while you are still close to it, there is a moment, a very specific moment, when a good experience is ending or has just ended. You can feel it. There is a natural transition point. The conversation is coming to a close. The music is finishing. The person is leaving. The sun is setting. In that moment, there is usually a small tightening, a reaching back, a wish to hold on. This is the moment where something becomes possible. You might simply notice the ending as it comes, not fight it, not cling to it. Instead, as the experience moves toward its natural conclusion, you can make a small gesture of release. Not dramatic, not forced, just a conscious opening. You might do this with your breath. As the joy is still present but beginning to fade, you can exhale slowly and completely. Let your shoulders drop. Let your belly soften. This is not rejecting the joy. It is not saying no to it. It is saying yes to what is actually happening, which is that all things change. When you do this, something unexpected occurs. The joy does not disappear. It transforms. It becomes part of you in a different way. It becomes a kind of trust, a knowing that you have felt joy before, and this knowing makes you available to feel it again. The fear dissolves not because you have convinced yourself that joy will return, but because you have directly experienced that you can let go and still be whole. The hand opens, the water flows, and the hand is still there, still capable, still available. Not diminished, not emptied, simply open. This is not something you need to believe. It is something you can feel directly if you are willing to try it. The next time a moment of goodness is naturally ending, you can pause, you can breathe, you can let it go consciously with gentleness, and you can notice what happens inside you when you do. There is a moment that many of us know. You are sitting with someone you love. The light is good. The conversation is easy. There is laughter. And in that moment, something settles in you. A sense of rightness, of presence, of joy. It feels complete. It feels like it should last. And then it shifts. The person checks their phone. The light changes. Someone mentions something difficult. Or nothing changes at all, except that time moves forward, as it always does. The moment dissolves. And what often follows is a small contraction. A reaching back toward what was, a subtle resistance to the fact that it has passed. This is where many of us get stuck. We confuse the joy itself with the particular form it took. We think the joy lived in that moment, in those conditions, in that specific arrangement of circumstances. So when the moment ends, we believe the joy has ended too. We feel its absence like a loss. and we may spend the next hours or days trying to recreate it or grieving that we cannot. But there is something quieter happening beneath this reaching and grieving. There is an awareness that is present even as the joy comes and goes. It is the awareness that knows the joy is there. It is the awareness that knows it has passed. It is the awareness that remains, steady and unchanged, through both the presence and the absence. This is not a poetic idea. It is something you can feel directly in your own experience. Think of the sky during changing weather. The sky itself does not become cloudy when clouds arrive. It does not become clear when they leave. The sky is not affected by what moves through it. Clouds come and go. Rain falls and stops. Sunlight breaks through and disappears again. But the sky, the space itself, remains untouched by all of it. It is not trying to hold on to the sunshine. It is not resisting the storm. It simply is, and everything moves through it. Your awareness is like this. Joy moves through it like weather. Sorrow moves through it. Boredom, restlessness, tenderness, grief. All of it passes through awareness, and awareness itself is not diminished or changed by any of it. This is not something you need to believe. It is something you can notice. Most of us have been taught to chase joy and avoid sorrow. We have learned to grip tightly to the good moments and push away the difficult ones. This is a natural human response, but it creates a constant tension. We are always trying to hold on to what is already moving away. We are always bracing against what is coming toward us. We are never at rest. The teaching in the early Buddhist tradition points to something different. It suggests that the capacity for joy is not dependent on circumstances. It is not something that arrives only when conditions are perfect. It is already here in the awareness itself. The awareness that can know joy is the same awareness that can know sorrow. It is untouched by either. And when we recognize this, something shifts. We no longer need to cling to joy to feel that we are alive. We no longer need to resist sorrow to protect ourselves. This is what equanimity means in this context. It is not a cold detachment. It is not a flattening of experience. It is a steadiness that allows joy to be fully felt without the desperate need to hold it. It is a steadiness that allows sorrow to be fully felt without the desperate need to escape it. It is the ground beneath the weather. There is a simple way to begin to notice this in your own experience. The next time you feel a moment of joy, whether it is small or large, whether it lasts for seconds or minutes, let yourself feel it fully. Do not rush past it. Do not minimize it or tell yourself it is not important. Feel the warmth of it. Feel the lightness. Feel however it lives in your body and your mind. This is not clinging. This is presence. And then, as the moment begins to shift, and it will shift, because all moments do, notice what remains. Do not try to hold the joy. Let it go as naturally as a wave returns to the ocean. But as you let it go, turn your attention inward. What is here now? What is aware that the joy has passed? What is observing this change? You may notice a quiet presence, a stillness, an awareness that is not troubled by the absence of the joy. It is not sad. It is not celebrating. It is simply here. It is simply knowing. This is the sky. This is what was never touched by the cloud in the first place. You do not need to do anything with this noticing. You do not need to try to hold on to it or strengthen it. Simply recognize it. Let it be known. The more you notice this quiet awareness, this steadiness that persists through all the changing weather of your experience, the more you realize that joy has not actually left you. The particular form of it has passed, but the capacity to know joy, the openness that joy moves through, the awareness itself, this has never gone anywhere. It is still here. It was always here, and in recognizing this, something releases. The desperate grip on joy loosens. The fear of its absence softens. You can celebrate fully because you no longer need the celebration to prove that you are alive. So we arrive here, not at an ending, but at a natural pause. The kind that happens when the breath completes and the next one has not yet begun. You have been listening for some time now. Perhaps you have felt moments of recognition. Perhaps something shifted, even slightly, in the way you hold your own happiness. Or perhaps you simply rested here, and that alone is enough. Joy without clinging is not a skill you master once and carry forward like a certificate. It is more like learning to swim. You enter the water again and again. Some days the body remembers. Some days it does not, but the water does not judge. When you celebrate something, a success, a reunion, a moment of beauty, you are not being asked to diminish it. You are not being told to hold back or to protect yourself by feeling less. The teaching is quieter than that. It asks only that you notice the difference between tasting and grasping, between presence and possession. You can laugh fully. You can feel the warmth of companionship or the satisfaction of work completed. You can let those feelings move through you like weather, bright and real. And when they begin to fade, as all things do, you can notice that too. Not with sadness, but with the same gentle attention you gave to their arrival. This is not detachment in the sense of coldness. It is detachment in the sense of freedom. The freedom to be with what is here and to let it go when it is time. There will be days when you forget. When joy arrives and you grip it too tightly, trying to make it stay. When you feel the ache of its passing and think something has gone wrong. On those days you have not failed. You have simply encountered the old habit again. And the practice is the same. Notice, soften, return to the breath, return to the body, return to the simple fact of being here, alive, capable of feeling. That capacity does not depend on any single moment lasting forever. Think of a pond in the late afternoon. The surface is still. The sky reflects there, and the trees, and if you watch long enough, the first stars. Everything appears in the water clear and whole. But that the pond does not try to hold the sky. It does not cling to the reflection of the trees. It simply receives what is offered, and when the wind comes, the image dissolves. The water remains. This is what the mind can do. It can receive joy, sorrow, beauty, loss. It can let each one appear fully, without distortion. And it can let each one go, without collapse. You do not need to become the pond through effort. You already are the pond. What you are learning is to stop disturbing the surface, to stop thrashing after reflections, to let the water settle into its own nature. When the water is still, it reflects everything. When it is disturbed, it reflects nothing clearly. But even disturbed water is still water. It has not lost its essence. It is only waiting to settle again. So if you find yourself clinging, chasing, aching for something to stay, you can remember this. You have not broken anything. You are simply watching the ripples. And ripples, left alone, always calm. Sit with that image for a moment if you like. A body of water, receiving and releasing. Not because it has trained itself in non-attachment, but because that is what water does. You might continue from here into another teaching, another exploration. There are many threads in this practice, and they weave together slowly, over time. Or you might simply sit in silence. Both are good. What matters is that you have listened, that you have brought your attention here to this quiet place and allowed something to settle. That is the practice. Not the accumulation of insights, but the returning, again and again, to stillness. The water does not ask what comes next. It simply reflects what is. Let yourself rest in that.